Alright, welcome back to day 2 of building Mr. Clay Walker's golf clubs. And as you saw in the last one, we took apart the old clubs and we took out the shafts, which will be on eBay, by the way. And then we frequency matched and balanced out the club. And now we're going to finish the ferrules, cut them to length, and put the grips on. Again, we talked about ferrules. I'm kind of a ferrule freak on this kind of stuff. And you get all these extra, just from the extra glue might be showing up. You might get it from the fact that you get edges, just little, hear that? Edges that come, that just create a shoulder, which I don't like. I like it to be smooth. And then we're going to shine them up so that they look like they belong on the club. And that's the ferrule. And we do that in a couple of ways. I use a 1x42 felt belt on a machine that's going about 1800 RPMs, and then I finish it off with, I don't think you can see it quite good, but we use a non-stitch buffing wheel with glands wax, or it's called yellow wax now. You can get that at a Grizzly or even Golf Works. So I finish it off with here. I dress it with acetone. Then I finish it with the wax, and that's kind of my sealant, so to speak. Ferrules are done. Then we go over and then we measure them to length, and then we will put the grip on it, and then we'll bend them to spec, and then we're there. So let's get started. Alright, see, that was, when you have the machine, it just makes it that much easier to do. Now we're going to take the tape off of the edges, and we're going to put the acetone to them. That brings them back to shiny, and then we put the glands wax on it, and that just does the sealing. So give me a minute for that. Now you ask, why do I use the tape here? Well, if you're not using the felt belt, they have these paper ferrule belts, and if you get them curved in any just a little bit of way, they'll cut into the shaft, especially on a graphite shaft, and they leave a distinct edge, and it just cuts into the paint, and it could create a weak spot. I mean, in the strictest sense of the terms, yes. But if it really cuts in there, then yeah, you got a problem. It doesn't look good, and all of a sudden it's not functional anymore. So you put that on there. Now, if you're doing this by hand, you know, taking that sandpaper and just going back and forth like a shoe shine, get up there as close as you can, and that way when it gets on there, you don't sand across this even when you're not paying attention. In some cases, you might even want to put it on the ferrule side. That way you don't sand down your ferrule, or your hosel, sorry about that. Okay, with acetone, these 2x2 squares have really become handy. You get those nice and wet with acetone, and then you go 90 degrees to the way that you were doing the ferrules. And that wipes off all your marks that you made for your alignment lines, all the little marks that were made by the ferrule for the felt belt. And you see it leaves some stuff on there, and that's you removing some of the plastic, so you just can't stay on there very long. You know, see how fast I'm moving it. And if you fold it over in half, you can get quite a bit done. That's 5. I go at least 6. And then, if you're really conservative, you can fold them over inside out and get the same thing. And that's as quick as it takes to get that. Now I'm going to move this back a little bit. That's the one. So we use this. It's by Menzerna. M-E-N-Z-E-R-N-A. Menzerna. And it's appears to be, I've taken off all the other stuff, but Menzerna yellow wax. That's what we're looking for. So put a little bit on here. And now we start doing the ferrules. Okay, now at this point we got to wipe, just like wax in a car. Once you put these on, you got to take the wax off. So let me get a towel. And again, just like anything else, you just wipe it off. And there you go, nice and shiny again. Now while you're doing all this, it kind of gives you a chance to inspect your work. Did you get it nice and clean? Does the ferrule look good? That kind of stuff. Because there's one more when we get done. I put one more layer of wax on the whole thing just as a sealant. Now what do you do if you don't have the machine? What do you do? Well, in reality, the thing is plastic, right? The ferrule's plastic. So once you get it smoothed out, either by using acetone, if you've gone this way and you've gone this way and you've smoothed it out, it's pretty much going to maintain its shine. Now from a hand point of view, you can go get car wax, and it doesn't have to be special, like the Turtles hard shell finish stuff. It's very inexpensive. You can put that on there and you can get another coating on it at least, and that way it just makes it a little harder. Now I prefer to do this obviously, but if you don't have the machine, is it going to make it weak? No. But I would certainly put that other piece of wax on it just to give it a long-lasting shine or a long-lasting feel. Now let's go measure some clubs. Alright, so now we're going to measure all the clubs. I have this entire set. We're going to do driver, 3 and 5 wood, 3 and 4 a hybrid, and then we're going to start into the irons. I had to review my paperwork just to make sure, because this is the most important part as far as being correct, because once you cut it off, putting it back on is a lot harder. So using my AccuMade ruler, we're going to measure some stuff out here. So 44 3/4. For that. When you see me marking the other parts of the shaft, I'm marking out where when I cut it long, and when I cut the tip off more, I had to mark it back. So I'm just taking off my other adjustments. Okay, that's marking them. Now I'm just going to be making a bunch of noise. Cutting a shaft is cutting a shaft. You want to just make sure that you know, if you're using rotating machinery, that you have good ventilation. If you don't, and you're using like a hand sawing, don't use a hacksaw, especially on graphite. You want to get what's called a rod saw, and that gets right through it. Now the real trick is to keep it straight, and if you get a little bit off, just sand it so it's smoothed off. So I'll be right back. Okay, the next stop is some gripping. Let's do some. Okay, we got all the grips on, or all the grip tape on. Now we're going to put the grips on. These are the Patriot grips from Golf Pride. You can see all that. And very, very nice rubbery type grip. we are going to put these on. Okay, once you get them lined up, you always look. I always line there's an indicator at the top of here, and I put it so that it's at the bottom of the club, or at the leading edge of the club. Now on woods, it's a little different. Now I did measure all these. As it turns out, they are all the same weight, so I really didn't have to worry about which ones to put on to each one of them. Thing about putting on grips is you always want to have enough grip solvent, because nobody likes them getting stuck halfway. I like wiping them down with just a little bit of solvent. That just cleans everything off. So if you ever wondered what it would take to do a whole entire set of clubs, just a little bitty old squirt bottle about like that. It's like a little mustard or ketchup bottle, and it was full about right about there. Use enough, you did a whole set. So let me go and we'll do the loft and lies on these, and then we'll talk about how we built the clubs again and do some club basics while we're at it. Alright, so if we did this again and we had Mr. Walker go through it and you just took him by his specs, you would only want to give him something that's way shorter. Well, because of his swing plane, he can actually wield a longer club, and that's where we went with these particular clubs. Now, as a whole, the driver is 9 times out of 10 always too long anyway, so we had to cut that down, but just a little bit. The rest of the stuff came out pretty good. I got the lofts where I wanted them, the lies where I wanted them, the lengths and the frequencies and the irons and the woods came out pretty good. And now it's just a matter of picking them up and putting them out there. Now, 2 more things. Mr. Walker, accomplished country western singer, and has a very, very smooth swing. And because of that very smooth swing, he's been, he gets things, has advantage of things that most of us do not, and that's just part and parcel of the gig. That's no big deal. But in the tour trailers, the tour trailers only know a few things, and it's basically standard weight steel, unless somebody has a special request. Well, if you don't know to ask, you get what they got, which is 9 times out of 10 a very, very nice steel shaft. It's just heavy. When we found out with Mr. Walker, he was very smooth in his delivery, and the weight was causing the club weight was taking over at the bottom and causing him to either snap hook, or if he was holding on to it, a big push. And that's kind of what happens when you have a flatter swing plane. So with a lighter club, a little more control and able to bring it around and get it up, and the ball flight gets a little bit higher, the trajectory goes where you want it to go, and where you hit it on the club also changed. You know, we were pretty much a predominant toe hitter, which again also can help you with all those hooks. As soon as we got to a lighter club, he started moving towards the middle of the face, and the hooks or the curvature stopped getting as big as it once was. So once we did that, we put in the recoils. Again, you can see that. And then we put on the Patriot grip from Golf Pride, and we put on the and you like the Callaway club. Let's put it in there like that. And that's what he ended up with, and he actually hit it further. Has a lot to do with the weight, okay? So he's a very low handicapper. He's got player style blades on there, or player style cavity backs, we'll call it. And you put it with everything's matched, everything weighs the same except for into the wedges, and the consistency should go up. Same thing with the woods. As soon as we put in the right length, he started making the middle of the face. Life is good. And he absolutely destroyed the 3-wood. You guys out there in the market for a 3-wood, that new Epic 3-wood, it's hard to beat out there. Now, last but not least, we'll talk a little bit about some club basics. Okay, some club basics. All right, we're just going to talk about the head of the club. All right, so there's the head of the club. This is the face, this is the toe, this is the heel, this is the hosel. Now, what I get is a lot of also is the amount of offset, which is the difference between the leading edge right here and the leading edge of the hosel. If you were to look down on this club, there's really not a lot. There's just a very minimal amount. Now, you also have, this is a player's cavity back. See how it only is in the top part and all that weight's down here? So that's a smaller cavity. The smaller the cavity, the less forgiving. Now, if you're a good ball striker, like Mr. Walker is, you don't need to have a ginormous cavity. You can have a cavity back that's like this, and this extra weight helps get the ball going up in the air. So what do you look for when you're doing, if you're an average golfer? Well, if you're an average golfer, you want something that's probably perimeter weighted all the way around. And you want something with just a modicum of offset, just what I would call medium. You don't want, if you see it doing like that on the backside from here to here, that's a lot. Now, if you're slicing, that's probably something that you would want. But again, you still want to be tested, because there are those guys that look down at these clubs and they go, man, that offset looks bad, and they slice it even more. You give them something with less offset, they say, man, I really like the look of that club. Boom, and they hit it a ton. So that's the reason why iron fittings are so important. Again, if you're a average player, maybe something with a slightly wider sole, a little bit more radius on it, and that way you don't get stuck into the grass. Okay, whether you're in thin or whether you're in thick, you just want it so that that thing will hit down and it bounces you out. That's the important part here. When you get a standard player, it'll be just slightly larger than this. This is a pretty comfortable size right here. But they do make them just slightly bigger. When they're slightly bigger, you get more room for missing. Now, as you get better, your misses get smaller, your pattern gets smaller, and it's just a matter of getting you into the middle of the face. So it kind of grow into different sets, so to speak. And then the last part is you got your hosel, and you talk about lie angle, and that's this part right here. All right, yeah, in a perfect world, it would set flat when you're at address, and when you come through, it comes through at flat again. However, the shaft tends to bend down during the swing. So if your club sets up just a tad like this, and you're a regular swinger, there's a lot of differences there. If you're a regular swinger, having it slightly toe up is okay because it will come through into the turf like that. What you really want to worry about is if you're going through and you're catching it heavy on the toe or heavy into the heel, that's when you really just want to do a lie test. And particularly if you're not getting it into the best part of the club. So you want to check that. So hopefully some of that helps. If you like what you saw, like the video, please. And if you want to know more, because we're going to do more club basics just by themselves, subscribe. And you'll be able to learn a little bit more about golf clubs and why they work or don't work for you. And let's see your scores go low.